Hello everybody, welcome back to another Hearthstone video by me. Today I want to talk about a few things. Tempo Rogue again. I know that's something I talk about a lot. I've been playing a lot of Rogue for a while now. The newest Vicious Syndicate Data Reaper report, and the difference between Standard and Wild right now in the meta, particularly as it pertains to Tempo Rogue. Now the Data Reaper report came out, and I was really pleased with the results because I've never paid too much attention to the metagame. I've never been playing this many games and felt this in touch with what the metagame is. And it was my observation that Aggro Paladin was a free win, basically, and Control Warlock was almost a certain loss. And their report basically said the same thing with regards to Tempo Rogue, and they basically said Tempo Rogue's the deck to play right now because these aggro decks are basically scaring off the Warlocks and stuff, and the Priests and the Warlocks are fighting and stuff, and Tempo Rogue's like kind of like the underdog while at the same time very successful. In terms of my own experience, I wanted to talk about my evolution as a player because I feel I've gotten a lot better. There was a few days ago, I was watching some videos by a Hearthstone player by the name of Control. He hits Legend every month. He's put out content trying to help people learn. It's been very helpful. I particularly learned things about tempo playstyle because I tend to be a slower player, so I don't have the instinct to go for the throat kind of thing. And he talked about Mulligan, which I kind of took to heart. And I tweaked my wild deck from a fun deck to a way more competitive version. And once I did these things, like my first 30 games were like 23 and 7. I went from rank like 9 to rank, I don't know, 4 in like half a day. It didn't take long at all. Something like that. I could be wrong about the specific numbers. But anyways, so like I looked at the fun deck I was playing and I started, you know, saying, okay, N'Zoth doesn't fit the tempo, Sylvanas doesn't fit the tempo. Like, what can I do to streamline the deck? Because, like, building fun decks is fun, but losing's not fun. So I kind of wanted to have, like, a deck that was fun and competitive. And I love playing Rogue, and they're well poised right now. So I thought I could do this no problem. And my main inspiration was that in Standard, Aggro Paladin was a free win. In Wild, they were shredding me. And if you look at the cards they have access to in Wild, like Shielded Minibot and Ship's Cannon, these things shouldn't be enough to make that big of a change. So that was my inspiration, and I tweaked it. I basically took the standard list and said, okay, what can I do with wild cards to kind of like make it better? And one of the things I did was put in Piloted Shredders in place of the Serenite Chain Gangs. The main purpose of, well, one of the things that Chain Gang does is stave off other quick decks. It makes them kind of answer your board instead of just going face, which Rogue doesn't have much survivability, so that can be very useful. But the main point of the Serenite Chain Gang was on turn 4 put down 2 bodies so that you're more likely to have a body for your turn 5 Cobalt Scalebane to be able to buff. And Piloted Shredder fits this role because if it gets killed, it produces another minion, which can then be the recipient of Cobalt Scalebane's end of turn effect. So that was one change I made. The other change I made was instead of 2 Bone Mares, I have Dr. Boom and Ragnaros. And yeah, part of that is to celebrate the fact that we're playing Wild. Another part of it is that I like Dr. Boom. I didn't play enough of him back when he was relevant. And in Wild, it could be argued he still is relevant. Yeah, there's been power creep and stuff like that, but still, 3 bodies, one's big, 2 small. If you destroy them, you get punished. You know, like he's a card like Sylvanas. When he hits the board, it kind of changes what your opponent can and is willing to do and would want to do. So it's not as fast as Bone Mare. So like if you're literally looking for raw, all out, you know, go for the throat kind of thing, you're probably going to want Bone Mare, but on an empty board, Bone Mare is not very useful. Dr. Boom is. And it could be argued that Bone Mare is a better recipient for Shadowstep, so that's another vote for Bone Mare. But overall, I like Dr. Boom. And there have been games where I just like rush my opponent down, not quite able to finish it. They're starting to stabilize, and the boom bots like just drive it home. So that's one thing. And then of course there's Ragnaros instead of the other Bone Mare. And this decision I like a great deal. Yes, it costs 1 more mana, so that's something you're gonna have to keep in mind. It's just as fast as Bone Mare. It's random, which can be a problem, but usually you play this deck for controlling the board anyways, so it's almost always going to be guaranteed go their face, and that can be useful. Warlocks like to set up a lot of taunts. There's games I've won just because Ragnaros can bypass those. Same against Mage. They want to freeze my board. Too bad, their health's still going down, and they end up losing the game as a result. So I definitely think Ragnaros is a better card than Bone Mare in a deck like this. Dr. Boom's going to be more to taste. I think it's a toss-up between him and Bone Mare. I'm going to go with Dr. Boom because I like that card and playing in Wild, so, you know, why not? Anyways, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that the Cubelock that's running around is a very hard deck for this, and that's why we have a Spellbreaker in place of one of the Pilot Shredders. In fact, my standard list I was running 2 Spellbreakers just because of the prevalence of Warlock, and they're not only helpful against Warlock, you know, if Priest gets down an Obsidian statue, you know, towards the end, you don't want them healing, you don't want that taunt, you don't want the death rattle that's going to destroy one of your minions, so just silence it, go past it. Even things like Righteous Defender, silence that so you can get at the Knife Juggler or go face or something, you know. So it's not a dead card when you're not playing Warlock, so I think it's a good add. In the Wild list, I think just going with one of is effective enough, but you know, you can change that based on what the meta's looking like at any time. But the thing I wanted to talk about is that Cube Warlock in Wild sounds like it would be an unstoppable force. They have cards like Dark Bomb they have access to, Mal'Ganis, Sylvanas with the Cube Dark Pack combo will shut down games entirely, so that's like another card that they can do this combo on that just basically wins them the game. But more importantly is Voidcaller. Like, the whole point of the deck is cheating out these bigger demons so you don't have to discard cards, so that you can put up this taunt wall like as early as possible. So Voidcaller seems like it would be a cinch, right? Like an auto-include, that kind of thing. But here's the thing. I have a much easier time beating these Warlocks in Wild than I do with Standard. They have better cards in Wild. So why is this? And I got to thinking about it, and I think the conclusion I came up with is the fact that Voidcaller is a demon, and Voidcaller's looking at your hand, whereas Possessed Lackey recruits demons, and Possessed Lackey's looking at your deck. So right away you have this like counter synergy, and sometimes that can be okay. Like, you know, sometimes you draw the demon you wanted to cheat out from your deck. Well, what are you going to do when it's in your hand? Yeah, you got the weapon, but it's a one-of, whereas Voidcaller can pull it. But the problem is sometimes Voidcaller pulls itself. Sometimes Possessed Lackey pulls a Voidcaller, and that loss of 1 turn in versus a very potent tempo deck can sometimes be all that you need to lose the game. And Warlock has a lot of healing, but they're having a hard time finding the right cards at the right time because of this counter synergy that's going on in the deck. At least that's been my experience. It's not uncommon for me to basically have lethal by turn 7 or 8 despite all their healing, just in time to like avoid the next void wall. There was even one game I Spellbreakered a Possessed Lackey rather than the Voidcaller it could pull, and that delay of game was enough to like win me the game. So I wanted to put this observation out there, see what other people thought, see if their experience has been similar, and to basically say, if you're somebody like me who's really enjoying Rogue and really enjoying this tempo list and the way it's shredding Aggro Paladin and the way it's keeping Priest on its toes, but you got that one matchup versus Warlock, I would say consider playing in Wild. The cards you need aren't that different. In fact, I would go so far as to say you don't actually have to play with any different cards. I definitely would say the Ragnaros. I do think the Pilot Shredder's a good idea, and of course Dr. Boom's a very fair candidate as well. So you can do that if you want, but you don't actually need any cards. If you got the standard Tempo Rogue list, you can just plop it into Wild and you'll have very similar success, if not more so. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me. I want to see what your guys' observation was, what you thought of the data report, if you're having fun in this meta, in this expansion. And let me know what your thoughts. If you can improve my game even more, that would be great. If you found this helpful, by all means hit that like or subscribe button. But I will see you guys in the next one. You guys have a great day.
This guy's tough.